Good evening. Good evening. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Jump on. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. We are live. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. Go ahead and like, tag, and share. Say hello as you come in. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Say hello as you come in so that I know you can hear me okay and you can see me okay. Good evening. Good evening. Go ahead and tag someone, like, share. Happy Tuesday. Hope you are having a great evening. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Say hello as you come in so I know you're out there. Hey, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Happy Tuesday to everyone that is out there. Go ahead as you're coming in, say hey, so I know that you're out there. You can share this, tag someone, like, let us know that you're on. I'm super excited. Tonight it is going to be our last live of 2023. Can't believe 2024 is literally right around the corner. So I wanted to do one last live. Super thankful for everyone who has jumped on this year, who has shared, commented, sent me DMs. I'm so appreciative of all the great feedback, and I am hoping that this platform has been a blessing. Hey, good evening. Go ahead and share as you come in. Hope that this platform has been a blessing to you. I'm thankful for, like I said, all of the positive feedback that I've received. So wanted to, like I said, jump on tonight to do one last live for 2023, and we're going to close out the year really with some words of wisdom. I'm definitely excited about bringing my special guest on, and she is going to talk a little bit about her divorce story and just some really great words of wisdom that even she has imparted to me. So let me go ahead and bring her on. Good evening, Mom Wood. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I am super excited to have my guests. I have been blessed and fortunate in my life to have many women who have embraced me as daughter and who have really shared such great words of wisdom with me in my life. Going through a divorce is definitely not an easy situation to go through. The transition, the everything that goes along with that. So I have been, like I said, blessed to have women in my life who I deem as mother figures, who've, like I said, embraced me as a daughter and really have been so instrumental in supporting me in this journey, and who have encouraged and given great words of wisdom. And so I wanted to close out this year with having Mom Wood come on and talk a little bit about her divorce story, and not only that, to really share some words of wisdom on navigating the healing process and navigating the journey for those of you all who are in, the divorce process. Maybe you're in the separation process, maybe you're like in the divorce process and it's not finalized yet, or you could be where your divorce has already been finalized. I know that she's going to impart into us some great words of wisdom. And honestly, the things that she has shared with me have not just been instrumental and in thought provoking and life changing as it relates to my divorce, but also as it relates to friendship and life in general. So I want to have you, Mom Wood, as much as you feel comfortable, talk a little bit about, your story of divorce.
Sure. So I guess I'll start with in the first marriage, because I did remarry. So the in the first marriage, I was married 8 years. I was married 8 years, and I found myself in a situation where, I was married to this man, well, childhood sweetheart, and what happened is that he cheated. I mean, it was a habit. It was something that he just did, and so anyway, I end up pregnant, and now I'm pregnant, and I have to make some decisions. Am I going to stay in this relationship, or and raise this child in that kind of environment, or am I going to move on and just do what I need to do to raise my baby? So we had a conversation, and this was the wake up for me. The wake up for me was when he said, my mother cheated, my father cheated, and I'm going to cheat. And that just spoke volumes to me, because I'm like, okay, so he's telling me who he is. He's telling me what he's going to do. So now, what am I going to do about that? Am I going to stay in the situation, or am I going to move on? And so I've got this baby now. I got to think about, not just think about me, think about him. And I had some friends that had been in marriages and relationships where the children were old enough to understand that there was a father in the house, and they had to deal with the separation. And divorce impacts children just as much as it impacts the parents. A lot of times the parents are more caught up in their emotions, so they don't really think about how it's impacting the children until after everything is over. So what I did was, I realized that my daughter was an infant. She was 8 weeks old. And so I'm thinking, the best thing I need to do, I already know where he's coming from. The best thing I can do for me and for her is to get out of this relationship now. Then that way she doesn't have to deal with the emotion of, breaking up, dealing with the divorce and all of that. By the time she was old enough to know any of that, I was already separated and divorced. So that was one of the decisions that I had to make. I made my decision earlier, and I didn't just think about myself. I thought about, how is my situation going to impact my child? So here I am now, and I am divorced, and I have a baby, and it's not just any baby. My baby has a heart condition. So now I'm not just raising any kind of baby. She's premature and she's got a heart condition. And I'm a single parent. So my decision was to relocate because I was born and raised in New York. So my decision was to pack up and leave New York and move to Virginia where my family was, so I would be close to family. And the reason I did that is because I was severing relationships. Okay. It wasn't healthy for me to be around him. He wasn't doing child support. I elected to not take him to court. There are a lot of women that do. They take them to court. But I felt like we didn't ask anybody's permission to make a baby. I didn't need to ask anybody's permission to tell him that he needed to take care of his baby. So I packed my daughter up and we relocated to Virginia so I could have the support of my family while I raised my daughter and start a whole new life for us. And I believe that was the best decision for me because, like I said, the relationship that I had with him, the relationship that I had with his family, his parents, was toxic. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy for me. It wasn't healthy for them. They were encouraging the infidelity. And, that was a normal way of life for them because they were doing it. So they were okay with him doing it. And so I didn't want that. I did not want that. So one of the things that, if I would share with anybody is you really need to assess your situation. So if you're thinking about divorce, before you make a move to divorce, make sure you exhaust everything in your marriage. Make sure that you have done everything that you could to make it work, is basically what I'm saying. Because the reality of it is, I was not saved when I got married. My husband wasn't saved. So I didn't understand all of the stuff about, God is not, fond of divorce. He doesn't encourage divorce. He didn't create divorce. I didn't understand any of that. So I just went and got married. That's what I did. Young, we're emotional when we're young. Our hormones are all over the place. We're doing all kinds of stuff. So I did not understand what I was getting into. So I would say that do everything you can. In that 8 years, we had split up twice. We had conversations about the marriage. I shared how I felt about it. He swore that things would change. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He even had a child outside of our marriage with somebody else. So, there was a lot of stuff going on there. So by the time I made up my mind to leave, I had exhausted everything that I could do to make my marriage work. So if nothing else, make sure, because what you don't want to do, and this is some advice that an older gentleman, a friend of my mother's, had told me, is that when you break up in a relationship, make sure you're done. Do not go back, because if you go back, you're going to be treated worse than you were from before. So, and that's exactly what happened to me. I took him back twice. So by this time, it's like, I can't fix it any further. I've done all I could do. And I need to cut this off now because I got to take care of this baby. And I don't need to bring her up in an environment. I didn't want her to grow up in an environment where she had parents bickering and, the usual typical stuff that causes friction in a household. I didn't want that. So make sure that you do that. The other thing is that, like I said, I had a sick child. Now, I'm not familiar with what's going on with with my child either. The doctor tells me, she's got this hole in her heart, and, she's going to need multiple surgeries and all of these things going on. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. But really, I'm not understanding, what he's saying. The only thing that I knew how to do was to pray. I knew how to do that. And so that's what I did. I just prayed and I just trusted God to give me the direction that I needed to be able to move forward. So everything that I did, it always started with I would pray and I would ask God to show me what to do. It's a frightening thing. Even if you have confidence in yourself to take care of yourself, it's frightening to divorce and then divorce and you have children. That's frightening because now you got to figure out, how am I going to take care of this child? Am I going to be able to take care of this child? And sometimes you're in a position where your job doesn't really pay a whole lot. So like I said, I've got a sick child. So I've got some extra things to be concerned about, like doctor appointments, specialists and things like that going on. So, but prayer works because somehow I got everything that I needed. The Lord sent the right doctors, and I had neighbors that would watch me coming back and forward with her. In fact, it was a lady that lived right across the hall from me, saw me leaving every day with Courtney going to work. And she stopped me one day and she said, hey, she said, the weather's getting really bad. And she did not know that Courtney was a heart patient. She said, the weather's getting really bad and I see you going to work. Sometimes, if she's sick and can't go to school or the weather's really bad, you can leave her with me. So you will get help. You will get help if people see you really doing what you need to do. So out of all of my in-laws, there was only one person, one relationship that I maintained, and that was one of his sisters, which was my sister-in-law. We had become friends even through my teen years. She and I had become friends, and she wasn't raised with them. She was raised by her godmother. So her mindset and the way that she was different, and my relationship with her was different than it was with his other siblings and his parents. So that was the only relationship that I kept. All the rest of them, the friends that we shared together, the his cousins, aunts, all of those people, I severed relationships with and moved on. She was the only person that I stayed in touch with and I allowed to see Courtney. She was the only one. And to this day, we are still friends. We are still friends. And she's one of Courtney's godmothers. So that was the only one. So you have to look at that too. You have to look at the relationships that you have, like you said earlier, not just with your in-laws, but with friends, what friends are healthy and what friends are unhealthy, because you're going through so much and there's so much going on in your mind that you need people that are going to encourage you, that are going to give you good sound advice and direction. And like I said, it's fearful, it's very frightening, but if you just stay the course, you trust the Lord and you pray, you get the help that you need. Even when you don't realize it, you get all the help that you need. I can't begin to tell you everything that, came my way when I severed that relationship and I moved on. People gave me advice, just like, you and I talked and I gave you, but people did that for me. People showed me what to do, taught me how to cook, how to do a lot of things. I learned a lot of things afterwards, but it's frightening. It's very frightening. You're by yourself. And if you've never lived on your own and, now you're on your own and you got a mouth to feed, it's frightening. It is very frightening. So you need the support of your family. You need support of friends, but friends that mean you well, not friends that are going to criticize you, that are not going to encourage you and uplift you and give you the direction that you need to get through the process, because it is a process.
Yeah.
Recently someone said to me, divorce is like mourning a dead friend. And in a way it is. It is. It's a mourning process because there's loss there. Even if you're not getting along with the person, even if you don't think you love the person anymore, it's still a loss because that marriage has been broken.
Mhm. How would you say, I mean, you know, a lot of what you have shared with me, privately, a lot of our story parallels as far as,
Hmm.
you know, you have a daughter that had a heart condition. I have a daughter that has a heart, had a heart
Hmm.
condition and, has had significant health challenges. And so,
Right.
can you talk a little bit about like navigating that space between, I have to make this really hard decision, um but I also have this child to think about because we always hear divorce can negatively affect children, and we do
Hmm.
see that from time to time. The statistics do show that. But I think
Hmm.
there's something to be said, which people do not understand, that staying in toxic relationships do more harm
Then good.
than just saying, okay, I'm going to just stay in this relationship for the sake of staying in this relationship because I don't want to end
Hmm.
this relationship. How did you have the strength to walk away? How did you navigate that space between, okay, like you said, he's telling me who he is, he's telling me he's not going to change, he's telling me
Hmm.
that he's going to cheat, and okay, now I'm pregnant. What do I do? Like, how do I make the decision? Because there are some, I've known of women who have stayed in marriages 30, 40, 50 years where there was infidelity, where there was abuse, and they felt like, oh well, God shielded me, God protected me. Oh, I'm not gonna uh break up the marriage because of whatever the spouse is doing. So how did you, I guess, get the strength to make that decision? How did what did you have any sort of wrestling with that because you did have your daughter?
So I guess for me, I had already had two separations with him already. And so by the time I made that final decision, I was done. So I didn't have to really draw from a whole lot. Um, when I found out that I was pregnant, I gave him an ultimatum and I said, look, because the day that I found out I was pregnant, I was planning to go home and tell him it was over. I needed him to leave. And I find out that I'm pregnant. And so my girlfriends are like, okay, you got to give him another chance. Maybe this will make a difference. So this is what I mean by, listening to the friends. Okay. So, so they're like, you got to give him another chance, because, maybe this will make a difference. And in my mind, I'm saying to myself, I don't think so because I'm still remembering my mother did it. My father did it. I'm going to do it. That's what's in my head. So I said, well, hey, I've hung in there this long. What's a couple months. So I give him an ultimatum and I say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm gonna have this baby and I'm gonna give you 8 weeks until after the baby is born to get your life right. And if nothing changes, then I got to go. I got to go. And so I had kind of already had things set up because I know what he had done to me before. So my apartment was set up in my name. And I made sure that I was able to pay any bills that needed to be paid on my own. So everything that I had set up was set up already in place so that if in the event that it didn't work out, I could just tell him he had to leave because it was my apartment. And so that's basically what happened. So I was kind of halfway there already by that time. But like I said, if you're starting out and it's your first breakup, that's why I say do not just jump up and say, oh, I'm going to get a divorce. Don't do that. And don't do that because you may end up finding out it's something that you could work out. Sometimes we think that, things are so bad that we can't work it out. And like I said, he had a child outside of our marriage, but, you know, we didn't split up right then. We didn't split up right then. So there was a series of things that happened that got me to a point where I was tired and I had had enough. So I don't know that I would call it that I had the strength. I just had gotten to a point where I was tired and I had had enough. And then having the baby, I had to not just think of myself. I had to think of the baby. How is this going to impact this child? Because nothing's changing. It's getting worse and it's only going to get worse. So, do I continue to sit here hoping it's going to get better? And now this child has gotten attached to him and has to deal with the separation just as much as I do, only I'm probably going to be fed up. The baby don't know what's going on. So it was more of a being logical and thinking rationally, realizing that I'm in a toxic relationship. It's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for the baby. I just need to, sever it off and walk away. So sometimes things aren't about being strong enough. It's about being wise enough to say, hey, this is not good. And I need to walk away. It's painful, but I need to walk away. People stay in relationships. They know the relationships are toxic and they wind up getting sick or they wind up getting killed or hurt or, so many things. I have seen people over the years in relationships, abusive relationships where they knew they needed to get out of it. People have told them they need to get out of it and they wound up sick. Some of them wound up so sick that they got critically ill and they passed away. And some of them, they just miserable. There's no other way for it. They're just miserable. So sometimes, we don't want to deal with the separation piece, and we think that that's going to be worse, but it hurts for a little while. It does. I would never tell anybody it doesn't hurt. It hurts for a little while, but you have to be able to sometimes just say, this is not working, and it's got to be a better way to do it. And the strength comes from other people. That's why you have to surround yourself with other people, because that's where your strength comes from. Your strength comes from, the mother that will say, hey, you can come stay here if you have to, and you need to get out of that situation. Or in my case, the neighbor that said, hey, I see you trying to get to work every day, and let the baby stay with me. Don't drag her out there in the snow. Don't drag her out there in the rain. I'll keep her, and charge me nothing, and things like that. So Courtney, when she first had her first heart surgery, I was telling somebody recently that the first heart surgery she had, when I went to the hospital, I would go to the hospital at lunchtime to check on her. But it was hard to leave because she would get to crying and they couldn't calm her down. People on my job said, hey, I'll go over there at lunch. Don't you go at lunch. I'll go over there at lunch. And so there was a couple of ladies at work that took their lunch hour. They rotated out and took their lunch hour to go to the hospital to check on her at lunchtime. And then I would go after work. So that way I could stay till she fell asleep. So, that's where your strength really comes from, is from other people. You don't really have the strength. You just have to make a decision to say, this is not good for me. I need to get out of this situation, and the help will come, because people won't watch you struggle by yourself. They won't. They will help you.
I
I hope
think
that answered your question. I hope that
yes,
answered it.
yes, yes. I think one of the most important things that I have learned in this process is the importance of community,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and not just community, but the importance of having the right people speaking to you, having the right
Mm-hmm.
people around you, having the right people around my girls. Like that has been such a learning and such an eye opening because you know there are times that you do think that certain people are in your corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then a situation like divorce oftentimes will show who really is for you and who really is not for you.
Right,
And
right.
so that definitely has been a very eye-opening situation for me. It's definitely been a
Mm-hmm.
learning curve and the importance of having positive, like you said, positive,
Mm-hmm.
healthy relationships and healthy people around you that can be supportive of you while you're going through this difficult process. Because, like you said, divorce, whether you know it's the right decision, whether it's a struggle, whether it's not a struggle, it is difficult because, like you
Mm-hmm.
said,
Mm-hmm.
it is, and we've said it before, it is a loss of a person that is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
more times than not, unfortunately, you don't just divorce the person, you also are divorcing whatever connections that you
Mm-hmm.
had as a result of
Right,
that marriage. And sometimes
right.
it's a good thing that you're separated, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it can be really hurtful, especially
Right.
if you've been around people for a long period of time, if you develop what you thought in your mind was close relationships and community, then all of a sudden, because you have to make a decision, which divorce is between a husband and a wife, it doesn't have anything to do with
Mm-hmm.
anybody else. But
Right.
we know how people can be. They have their thoughts about it, they have their opinions. People like to take sides. Well, I'm on his side, I'm on her side. And especially if you have children involved, honestly, the children are the ones who are hurt the most because
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, we were cool, now we're not cool. You were cool with my
Mm-hmm.
mom, now you're not. You were cool with, this person, now we're not. So it's not just the individual that's going through it. Like you said, the children can also be affected. And I think, people don't realize children aren't just affected just because the mom and the dad are not together anymore. They also can be affected by the negativity that is
Right,
surrounding the
right.
the relationship, or even the relationship being dissolved. Um, so how do you? I guess where I want to go is like, how do you know when it's time to close the door to the past? We often hear sometimes about, you know, cutting off relationships. And this is not what this is about, as far as like, oh, we just cutting off relationships. But I do think that there comes a point in time in certain relationships where you have to say, okay, this relationship has run its course, or this person was only supposed to be in my life for this season, or you know being in this relationship. And now I'm not talking about the divorced husband and wife, I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
everybody that is around.
Right.
It's time now, for whatever reason, that this relationship ends. How do you know when it's time to get to to that place? I know me and you talked a couple of months ago, and
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely an a revelation to me, because I was in the space at that particular time in my life
Mm-hmm.
where I was trying to hold on to certain relationships. I was trying to do everything I can to keep friendships going, to keep connections going, to, foster some sort of community. And like, I was in my mind, there was a line like, okay, here's a divorce, but this over here, these relationships shouldn't have anything to do with that. And maybe that was
Mm-hmm.
me being naive.
Mm-hmm.
um but it became a battle where I just felt like I'm the one doing all the work to keep this relationship going, and the other party could really care less. They can take me or leave me. So, I mean, to be honest. So, I
Yeah.
mean, even for individuals who maybe divorce is not their story, but they're at a
Hmm.
point in time, maybe in friendships in their life. Like, how do you know when it's time to close this door to my past? It's time to kind of move on from this relationship, move on from this friendship.
So before I answer that, I just want to say this too, because this part is important as well. That when a divorce takes place, sometimes the person is friends with both the husband and the wife, or whoever is involved in with the couple, and so they can feel torn too, just like the children feel torn, because they like both people, and they feel torn because they don't want one to be upset because they feel a certain way about the other. So we have to keep that in mind too, that there are some friends that will be feel torn, so they too are impacted by the divorce. So I just wanted to kind of add that to that part. How you know when it's time to sever the relationship, I would say, is when it's no longer conducive to your relationship. And you find yourself, like you said, you were doing a lot of things to try to make things work. When you got to work so hard to keep a relationship, a relationship is a mutual thing. It should come from both parties. So if both parties are working together, it shouldn't be strenuous. It just shouldn't. It should be something that happens naturally, and both parties are putting something into the relationship. A friendship is just like a marriage in a way, because it takes two people to have a relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's between a parent and a child, whether it's a husband and a wife, whatever it is, everybody has to put something in. So if only one person is working, it's not a relationship. It's not a relationship. So I would say when it gets to the point that it's no longer conducive, the relationship is no longer conducive to to you or to that other person, and it becomes strenuous, it's not worth having, because we should all be bringing something to each other. It's like I said, you attach yourself to people that are going to encourage, uplift, and impart wisdom into you. And if those things aren't happening, if you're not growing, then what are they bringing? What are they bringing? So that's what I would say. I would say when it becomes strenuous and it's no longer conducive to your relationship, then that's the time to start looking at it and say, well, why am I in this relationship? What is it about this person that makes me feel I need to have them in my life? What?
Well, I mean, when you ask that question, that requires definitely some soul searching
Mm-hmm.
on your part. Like, are you in the relationship because it's a relationship of convenience? Are
Mm-hmm.
you in the relationship because it was a connection? If we're going back to the divorce, it was a connection to, the person that you used to be married to, or like you said, do I see value in continually having a connection with this individual? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's something that we all should be uh thinking about as we evaluate our relationships and as we evaluate
Mm-hmm.
our friendships, because we all should be growing, right? Anything that's
Right.
not growing is dying. And
Right.
so, me being in a relationship, a close relationship with this person or with this individual, it should be adding some sort of value to my life
Right.
in a positive type way. If I'm feeling drained all the time, if I'm,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, if I feel like I'm the one putting forth the work and this person is not, then it becomes one-sided. My
Mhm.
oldest daughter, she's at the age now, she's in high school, and that whole going through relationships and friendships. And I
Mhm.
often tell her that relationships are reciprocal.
Right.
So if you're the one that's always giving all the time, that's not a relationship.
Right.
If you're the one that's always calling, if you're the one that's always reaching out, then you're not in a relationship. That's not a friendship.
Right.
That's some sort of one-sided, I don't know what that is, but that's not a relationship. And so you have to understand, and like you said, be able to have people around you, especially, we're going hopping back into the divorce situation, that are able to not only speak to you where you are currently, but to where you had the potential to go.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
that was very important for me, that I surrounded myself with people who were able to speak to my future
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
did not let me stay in a place of depression or in a place of anger, in a place of bitterness, but were able to say, listen, you're going through this time in your life, but this time in your life does not define you. It does
Mhm.
not
Right.
define who you are. You have
Correct.
purpose. You have something greater that God has for you. You will have love again. So speaking words of hope, speaking words of encouragement, like you said,
Mhm.
even if you don't have them within yourself. Did you come to a space and time where you were like, okay, these are the boundaries I need to set in place, in your relationships, not just for you, but like you said, okay, I have a daughter now. I can't allow her to be exposed to toxic behavior. How did you kind of decide, okay, these are the boundaries that I want to put in place, for not just for her, but for me too?
I just created a completely different environment for myself. So what I did was, I had I had friends that were divorced, or they were, single parents. And what we would do is we would come together because we all had children. And so, on weekends, we didn't like to hang out and stuff like that. So what we did was, on weekends, we would, most of the time they like to come to my house because I cook. Nobody else cooked. So most of the time they wanted to come to my house, but which was fine. But what we would do is, on the weekend, we would get together like on the Saturday, and we would buy snacks. And back then, they had videos and stuff like that. So we get videos for the kids and snacks for the kids, and we like to play cards, and we like pina coladas. So we get some, get stuff to make pina coladas. And they would come to my house. Sometimes I would go to theirs, but like I said, most of the time they wanted to come to my house so they could get me to cook. And we would hang out with our kids, and that was our support system, because we all were in the same place. And we could help each other out. So none of the kids were hungry, none of the kids were in need of anything, because when somebody lacked, the other one stepped up and helped them out. So I just recreated a different environment. I knew friends, you know, um, I had a job, so I didn't have to change jobs. Sometimes my husband would show up at the job and be sitting outside waiting for me, but I had gotten to a point where I didn't even let that bother me. And I just recreated an environment for myself and for my daughter that was going to be healthy for her. So I didn't worry about people that, if you weren't, on the same path that I was on, I didn't attach myself. I chose to be around, my girlfriends were within my age group, but when I wanted advice, I went to older people. So I had older people that were friends of mine. I always had people that were anywhere from 8 to 10 years or more older than me that could give me advice, because the people my age can't give me advice because they're going through the same thing I'm going through. So they can't give me advice. I need to go to the people that have already been through something. So I always got advice from older people. So that's how I survived. I would just, I would say, hey, what do you think about this, and this? And they would tell me how to, show me how to manage my money, and, how to make meals that would last, a few days. So I didn't have to worry about being without food, and even sometimes one time, when I first started working, I wasn't making that much money. My daughter's doctor said, hey, I'm going to write you a letter. You go to social services and get you some food stamps. And the doctor wrote me a letter. And that's what I mean about people that will automatically just come and help you. But you got to change your environment. You got to change your mindset. See, I didn't worry about what my ex-husband was doing. I didn't worry about any of that. I knew that I wanted something different, and I wanted it to be better. And so I only pursued different and better. If it wasn't healthy, I didn't even address it. I just pushed it to the side and kept moving. So I didn't want negative people around me. If I was around somebody and they weren't trying to do anything with their life, I didn't hang out with them. I treat them nice. I speak to them and be respectful, but they couldn't be a friend. They couldn't be the friend, because I wanted people that were going to challenge me. So they needed to be about something. They needed to be doing what I was doing or more than I was doing, but not less. I didn't want to be around people that were doing less. And that was just my mindset. And so, sometimes we rob ourselves by thinking we're less than who we are. God created us to be better. He didn't design divorce. Man designed divorce. And so we should not submit to the aftermath of that. We should not stop living because we got a divorce. And I understand, even with the churches, and I'm not putting down any particular church. So I don't want nobody calling Kia talking about, she talk about my church. I ain't talk about any particular church, but I'm just saying from my own experience that was one of the things that people shunned me for, because I had been divorced. I couldn't even get my baby christened in church because they told me she didn't have a father, so, stuff like that. We got to get past all of this mess. Stuff happens, but because it happens, it doesn't mean that we have to stop living. It doesn't mean that, and so if whoever is listening today, if they are going through anything, that's the first thing I would say is don't stop living. And don't worry about what people say. What do you want for yourself? You need to sit down and think about that. Sometimes that's the other thing I wanted to remember to say tonight too, is when you get a divorce, the worst thing you can do is jump right into another relationship. That's the worst thing you can do. And I know some people probably think that sounds crazy, but a lot of times we don't even know who we are, what we want. And when we get to the place where we know who we are and what we want, when it's time to get married again, we're going to pick the right person. We'll pick the right person because we'll know who we are. But a lot of times, we just flying by the seat of our pants. We just doing stuff and we working on emotion instead of rationale. And so we end up picking up the wrong thing. So divorce is not the end, it's the beginning. You just starting a new life.
I love that because you practically summed up, I am not my divorce. in stating, because you are correct. In a lot of circles, there is a lot of shame. And we've talked about that on previous, talks that we've done on previous episodes on how you have to move past that stigma.
Right.
You have to move past that shame. You cannot allow people to define you by past mistakes. Something my father said to me is that, Nakia, people make mistakes, in life. Right. There are a lot of people that make a lot of mistakes. The only difference is some mistakes are public, and some people
Mm-hmm.
are able to hide theirs behind closed doors. That's really the only
Right.
difference. But none of us walking this earth are not flawed individuals, and we all have things in our life, as the old people used to say, we all have chapters in our lives that we would not
Right.
like to be read out loud. And so
Right.
one thing is not worse than the other thing. And so in doing this, hopefully people will feel encouraged to know, like you said, that even if you have to make that hard decision, even if the marriage that you thought was going to be forever has dissolved for whatever reason, because everybody's situation is different. In God, you can always begin again. That's the thing that
Absolutely.
I love about God. Man may
Mm-hmm.
put the thumbs down on you. Man may say,
Mm-hmm.
"Up, that's it. That's the end of you." But because we have Christ, we know that we always have the opportunity for a new beginning.
Right.
So you brought up such a great point, and I just wholeheartedly concur with the fact that after you've gone through a divorce, it is, or even anything difficult that you have gone
Mm-hmm.
through, it is so important to change your environment. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't keep doing the same thing. You can't keep hanging
Mm-hmm.
around the same people. You can't keep, sometimes you can't even have the same close friendships with certain people if they were
Right.
connection to that old life. Because, like you said, if I'm believing God and I'm saying, you know what, I want to make better decisions, I want greater for my life, I want better for my life, I want bigger for my life, then you are the one that's going to have to make the change that needs
Mm-hmm.
to happen for you to see those things being manifested in your life. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
cannot think that you're going to have a positive environment if all you're doing is speaking negative. You cannot think that you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have a positive environment if you surround yourself with negativity or things that remind you of your past. So I love that you said
Right.
that, because even the more when you have children, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand that, because I've done that myself, being very
Mm-hmm.
selective about the people that I have in my life, being very selective about the people that I have my daughters interact with,
Mm-hmm.
being very selective about what I engage in, because if it's not taking me, like you said, on that path that God has for me to reach purpose and destiny, then I don't want to be a part of it, and I don't want it connected to me, and I don't want it to be connected to my girls either,
Correct.
because what negatively affects them negatively affects me as well. And so I think what you spoke about, the importance of environment and community, is so key. As we wrap up, I know you said it in the beginning, but you went through a divorce, you went through being a single mom, and being a single mom of a daughter who had health challenges, and I can empathize with that. I understand that life
Mm-hmm.
very well, because I have a daughter
Yep.
who has had significant health challenges, and
Mm-hmm.
I was just telling somebody this weekend that I'm at the point now in her journey, which is also my journey, that I'm just like, when something else happens, it's like, hey, it's just a part of the process. There's no need to cry about
Right.
it or get sad about it.
Trust
It's
God.
just, yes, it's just like, okay, God, you already knew that this thing was going to happen. I'm gonna just give this all to you, and we gonna make it happen, and we're gonna do what we need to do to get her,
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of whatever this hurdle is. But um definitely are a testament to beginning again, and
Mm-hmm.
having a successful marriage after a not successful marriage. I believe
Mm-hmm.
you and your husband just celebrated 25 years. Is that right?
26.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
26.
25.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
25. We're
And
in
so,
26.
yes. So you are definitely a testament of the fact that divorce is not the end. And, when you are in Christ and you have made a conscious decision to change your life, to change your environment, to
Mm-hmm.
change your thinking, and to really submit to God, then you get on a path in which the right things are able to come into your life. So how would you, say that you got to that place where you felt, listen, I see the value of myself. I know that past relationship was not where I was supposed to be. And now you're open and you're ready to receive. And here we are in the 26th year of marriage now.
Well, the first thing I'll say is I wasn't looking for a husband.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. When I got remarried, I had been divorced about almost 20 years. So it took me a long time to get married again. I had gotten to a place where I was comfortable just being me, and I think that that is important for every person, male or female, because some men, suffer the same things that, we women suffer. It's not just men doing it, women are doing it too. So I would say you have to get to a place where you trust God, but that you are okay with just being you. And what I mean by that is I wasn't looking for anybody to make me complete or make me whole or do any of that. I wasn't looking for that anymore. I didn't need it. I had totally given myself over to the Lord, and I was good with that. I had people approach me and say, men mostly, but say, you need to get a man. You need to get married again or whatever. And I would tell them I was already married because I was married to Jesus. Everything that I needed, the Lord provided for me. And so I didn't have a need to be looking for anybody or any of that. I was content. Um, Courtney got better. Or well, we know the Lord's hand was on her because the doctors predicted she would have multiple surgeries, and we know she's only had two. And so the Lord, I just gave everything over to him. And so I would just tell people, be content. You get to know who you are, get to know what you want. I had got to a point where, I had some standards, standards that I didn't even know I should have had the first time, but I had some standards. And, people laugh when I say this, but I had a list. I had a list of, if I did get married again, what I wanted. And then I narrowed it down to maybe I had, let's say, 10 things on the list. So 10 things on the list that I would like to see in a husband. Okay. And then I had maybe 4 things on there that I absolutely were not going to compromise on. They were the must-haves. If I didn't get these, if I didn't see these 4 things, then goodbye. I wasn't going to be bothered. And so I had those standards. And one of the main things that I wanted was that person needed to love the Lord. I wanted them to love the Lord, and they had to be able to teach me about the Lord. And so, people joke me. They said, girl, you was praying for a minister. I said, no, not really, but it just worked out that way. But, but you got to know what you want. And you can't know what you want until you know who you are. That is so key, to know who you are and love yourself. It's okay. It's okay to love yourself. So know who you are and love yourself. Trust God, and don't lower your standards. Be realistic in your standards, but don't lower them.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I mean, when you go through the process of healing, if you really are committed to the process of healing and you really commit yourself to God, I have learned that if you are really genuine and you ask God to show you, he will
Mm-hmm.
do that in a, not in a condemning way, but in a way of, you know what, these are areas in my life that I want to be better. These are
Mm-hmm.
areas in my life that I need to submit to God more, that I need to put under, the blood. And so I think you bring up a valid point about knowing yourself and
Mm-hmm.
not basing your worth on another individual. Like
Right.
not basing your worth on, okay, if I'm married, then I must be worth something. If I'm in a relationship, but like you
Mm-hmm.
said, getting to know yourself and getting to understand that you have value not because you're married, but you have value because you are God's creation and you are here for purpose and with purpose. And I
Right.
think once you understand that,
Mm-hmm.
then all of the other stuff becomes less important. It's like,
Right.
the Bible says to seek first the kingdom of God. And once you seek
Mm-hmm.
first God's kingdom, then all of the other things get added to you. I think
Right.
sometimes when we're out there and we're looking for all the added things, then
Mm-hmm.
we're just all over the place. We're this way, we're
Mm-hmm.
that way, we're here, we're there, instead of, like you said, when you are whole and complete within yourself, then having a spouse is just an added bonus. Like you said, you
Right.
came to a point in your life where I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
complete in myself, and I'm complete because of my relationship that I have with Christ. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely an important thing to know when you go through a divorce. Even if you've never been married and you are single and you've gone through a breakup, it's important to take that time to know yourself and to understand and really do the soul searching that needs to take place, really do the
Right.
healing that
Mm-hmm.
takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Because I say to people all the time, you are you wherever you go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so you can't get away from you. And
Right.
if you don't address, at least if you don't address and try to, with God's help, resolve some issues that you have, then you're just going to take those issues into the next relationship that you go into.
Exactly.
Not even the next relationship, in the next friendship or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why going through the healing process is definitely important. And everybody's healing process is different. The length of
Mm-hmm.
time is different too, as well. And so the more
Mm-hmm.
that you, like you said, trust God, the more that you submit to God, then He begins to bring everything that you need. I love that you said that throughout your process of that time frame when you were a single mom and when you were taking care of Courtney and she was going through her health challenges, that God was bringing everything that you needed.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't out there, oh, let me try to find a man to, help,
Mm-hmm.
meet this need or pay this bill. You were
Mm-hmm.
relying on God, and at every turn, everything that you need, God supplied that. And so I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a testament to that in this journey of now being a single, mom, that everything that I need, even if it doesn't happen the day I pray for it,
Right.
God, I know God to be a provider. When you're
Yeah.
young, we hear this stuff in church, especially, I'm a church kid, so we know how
Mm-hmm.
to testify, we know what to say. But it wasn't until I went through certain things in my life that I understand, yes, God is indeed a provider, because it's
Mm-hmm.
just me taking care
Mm-hmm.
of two children. So it's God that is providing. God is a
Mm-hmm.
sustainer. When my daughter deals with her health challenges, I know God to be a healer. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's a great thing, even when you're going through this space and time, that you really realize, and you don't have a choice but to trust and rely on God. Honestly, you
Right.
have you have no trust, you have no choice. So this has been so good tonight. So many words of wisdom, about creating healthy boundaries, uh, closing the door and being okay with closing the
Mm-hmm.
door to past relationships, being okay with closing the door to people in your life that may have been connected to a certain time frame in your life. It's okay if that's where your life is heading and you're following the leading of God and He's directing you and moving you into a different space and time. Something that you said to me that was so just such a revelation to me is that you can't hold on to the past and ask God to open up the door to the future at the same time. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work like that. You gotta let something go.
Mm-hmm.
Is almost like being in a hallway. That's kind of when you said that to me, that was the vision that God gave me of myself, of
Mm-hmm.
being in a hallway and having one hand on the door behind me and one hand on the door in front of me, and you're going this way, like you're not going
Right.
forward and you're not going backward. You're in the middle
Mm-hmm.
because you have to let something go in order to get to where and what God has for you. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was definitely encouraging for me and helped me to realize, okay, there are things I'm praying about. There are things I'm asking God to do for me, to do for my daughter. I'm not going to be able to receive those things if I don't let go people from my past, if I don't let go certain expectations, because that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing too. I got to let
Yeah,
go certain
it is.
expectations of people in my life. I have to let go certain expectations of people in my past, and I have to move on. And once I move on, then I leave room for God to take care of whatever's back there and where He's taking me going forward. So
Mm-hmm.
as we close, I just want to ask you to wrap up with any last minute
Yeah.
thoughts, and then we'll be done.
I just had one more thought, and that was
Mhm.
this is that the other thing that we have to think of, because we were talking about, having the children involved and how things impact the children. We have to keep in mind that we set the example for who our children become. And so with that in mind, where we are and how we're handling things, what impact are we having and what are we teaching them? So if I had stayed in that situation, what would I have taught my daughter? To stick in a relationship that's not healthy. But because I didn't stay in a relationship that was unhealthy, that teaches her that she doesn't have to stay in anything that's not healthy for her. That she'll be able to walk away and know that it's going to be okay, that she's going to make it, and that she'll be able to do what is needed and to trust God, you know. And so one day she came home and told me that the kids, were talking about their fathers and asked her where was her father. And she said, I and I said, you got the best father in the world. You got God for a father, and He's gonna take care of you. And she was content with that. And she was going around telling everybody, God is my father. God is my father. And and so, like I said,
Right.
changing the environment. But you are who you want your children to become. So you have to keep that in mind too as you navigate through life, because as you're navigating, they're watching you. And they're watching these things and they're learning how to deal with life, the things that you tell them and the things that you don't tell them. Because the things that you don't tell them, as they become adults, they will remember, hey, you know what? I remember when this happened and mommy did this, and this. So keep that in mind too, that you are who you want your children to become. They say they don't want to be you, but they're going to be you. Just like we told our parents we didn't want to be them, and now we are them, you know.
Very
And
true.
so, keep that in mind too, as you navigate through, your relationships, the people that you hang around, and all of that. All of that has an impact on your children because they are watching the things that we teach them and the things that we teach them that we're not verbally teaching them, but they're watching how we navigate and deal with life. And those things will have an impact on them later.
Go ahead. Go ahead and close us out. Did you have any last minute advice or thoughts?
Well, that was basically it, I think that I've, hopefully everybody,
Yes.
gleaned from what I shared. But like I said, Trust God, love yourself, be okay with loving yourself, and not look to other people to make you complete. You make you complete. When you pick that person or that person picks you, or even if sometimes you may not be like me, you may not get somebody else, you may never get married again, not because you don't want to, it just may be what God has for you. Is he may set you aside for him. I mean, I don't know, but what I'm saying is you have to be okay with you, and then the other stuff comes along. If there's somebody out there for you, that you will find each other. You will find each other. And but be content with that. If you don't find anybody, you'll be okay with that, because some people don't get remarried. Some people end up just being alone, or they have friends. That's why it's important to have a good support system. Your relationships may not be another marriage. Your relationship may be just to have a few good friends, and you be an encouragement to somebody else. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. But just don't let that broken relationship, whatever it is, friendship, marriage, whatever it is, don't let that be the end. Don't let that be the end.
I love that. Thank you so much for tonight. As always, every time I talk to you, it's such great words of wisdom, definitely thought provoking,
Amen.
and things that we can do in our lives, like you said, for the better. And a great thing that you said is that, getting wise counsel is so important. I've learned that, by going through this divorce, it's so important who you listen to, because everybody does not have your best interests at heart. And
No, they don't.
everybody is not, unfortunately, going to give you the best advice. And so you really
Right.
have to use discernment. You have to use discernment and really ask God and seek God on who you're listening to, and even ask him to bring in the people
Right.
that will encourage and speak to you to where you are, and not only where you are, but where you're going to. So again, I want to just thank everyone for listening. This is our last live of 2023. It's been a great year, and I really appreciate everyone's support. I hope that you all have a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, remembering that you are worthy, worthy, worthy of the
Yes.
love that God sent his son Jesus to die on the cross to give you. And so I hope that every day you wake up and you validate your own self, that I am
That's right.
worthy, that I am worthy, I am loved, and that I am important. Until the next time, see you guys in 2024.
All right.